Hello everybody and welcome to Painting Dark Sword episode 40. We're going to try some contrast paints on this one, and it's going to be sort of a limited round of them. You can see the little paint pots that we've got set up here. We've got some of our yellows here, Snakebite Leather and the Cyan Yellow. We've got our, we'll just use this Vulpes Pink as a red. We've got some bluish colors here, and we'll throw out our Wildwood. Now, as always, the whole idea behind things like these contrast paints is for folks that have a hard time getting the liner paint from Reaper. So think of these two as an equivalent. Think even of maybe these two, and certainly Leviathan Blue and Blue Liner. Definitely partnered up right here. Now we are going to use our Reaper off-whites. You could use kind of any off-whites. I mean, this is an off-white, this is a more pink, this one a little more blue. You could find just about anything that would work for that. Now the reason, obviously, for the paint pots, it's to prevent the, 8 or 9 hour spill from happening. So we get our little watercolor tray there. Got your Wildwood here. Give it a little pour. And that's it. Boom. Close the jar. You're done. You don't have to play with it anymore. Now, like I said, the watercolor trays here, I can actually show you where they come from. I just get these on Amazon. I can even toss up a link for you. So you've got one of these sort of transportable watercolor palettes, right? And right in here. There you go. And these things are just pennies on the dollar. I think a thing of 48 of them is $6 or $7. So they're just, again, not super expensive. Heck, you could use one of these trays as your palette for miniature painting. I think I've probably done in past years. Now the idea again is we're going to take some of these contrast paints, we're going to mix them with our regular paints, which means our initial glazes on this are going to be a little bit different. Okay, definitely a little bit different. We're going to do probably some wet blending because those things, they tend to stay wet just a little bit longer. So we're also going to play with some wet blending there. We'll do a little bit of non-metallic. I was thinking about doing the armor maybe in at least some parts of it in gold. That could possibly be interesting too with our contrast paints. And maybe, well, she is an elf, so maybe we'll do something a little bit different with the skin tones. I don't know. We'll find our way through it, and then we'll see if there's some kind of nifty foliage that can go on this. So we've got our paint out on the palette, which means we are ready to do those initial glazes next. We'll start this off in what looks like the usual way. And say this, think brown liner here, think blue liner here. We mix them together. Let's start to do some stuff on the base. And yes, you can mix the contrast paints together. I'm going to throw a little bit of the Snakebite Leather in there, give it a little bit different feel there, just like we always do. We take sepia liner, right? Think of Snakebite Leather and sepia liner as fairly good equivalents to each other. And there's a little bit more of your Leviathan Blue. There we go. Maybe give it a darker skin tone. Maybe something almost like I don't want to say dark elfish type thing. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Let's give it a slightly darker skin tone. But in the meantime, let's figure out what we're going to do for robes. And I'm just going to make that a really deep. As you can see, we just mixed some of the Wildwood. We mixed that in with our Vulpes Pink. And that's all just going to go down into all those crevices there. Because if we're going to be doing some kind of metal armor, we would also want it to reflect there as well. So maybe give it the darker skin and lighter hair, something like that. That's possible. And again, just thinking of these as those initial glazes. So, you know what? Let's just take some of that snakebite leather here and even a little touch of our yellow. Like it's just mixing together with everything. We're just having some fun here, mixing it together. Let it all combine here. Got some of our snakebite leather over here. Again, I'm gonna grab some of that. Like, I didn't even bother washing the brush or anything. I'm just gonna let that all gel together. And I'm not gonna take the sponge and wipe some of that away like I often do with the Reaper Clear and liners. Now, let's take some of that Leviathan blue here. I'm just going to throw some of that out here onto the skin and the hair. We're going to be doing obviously a lighter thing for the hair, but for now, let's just do this. As you do, let's take some of the Achillean green. Let's hit this sword here. Now, in some instances with this, we might do some initial blending and such, and maybe elsewhere not so much. What I will do here is grab one of our liner brushes. We're going to go in with our Maiden Flash, right? Let's go with some of that Vulpes pink here. I'll take a little bit of the yellow. That's going to keep it from getting too pink. And then let's see what we've got happening here. And there's a lot of folds and undulations in this, so that's why I got the liner brush here. We set it on its side. And it is effectively wet blending because, well, obviously our contrast paints are still wet. And you also have that semi-translucency, so they're not going to cover that completely. And what I think we're going to do then is let's play a little bit with our skin tones on this just to see something here. So we're going to take that light and blue. We've got it mixed with some of our maggot white. No, first I'm going to hit the hair. That's right. I'll do this. And you see how that's going to wet blend a little bit there too, just like on the cloak. Probably a little bit easier to see here. And while it's lighter, it's still certainly not white or anything like that. But we're taking advantage of how wet the paint is. This is another reason again that's why oils are oils and acrylics are acrylics. You can do wet blending with acrylics if you pay attention to timing, and if you're working on one figure at a time, you can do the wet blending there too. You really can. Now, what do we wish to do for that face? I think now this is what we'll do. We'll take a little touch of the maggot white here and mix that with our Leviathan blue. That changes that gray. It's not going to be quite so bluish. It's going to almost be certainly not a pink, but it will, once it changes it on the Leviathan blue, actually by itself it leans more towards purple. If that makes any sense, it's going to give you a bit more of a purple than the Achillean green is very much a greenish blue. It's that sky blue type of color. What I am going to do, even now, this early stage, look at this. Starting to think about other colors, yes, those are gold. They're supposed to be gold, but they're also facing towards the ground. A similar thing here. This is almost more of a katana here, it looks like. Can even use my finger to do a little blending on that. Let's go back into our Achillean green with maybe some of the maggot white mixed in. Again, that is the off-white that's towards the bluish end of things. So that's going to give us a different, that's a mid-tone right there. I know it seems like a highlight, but it really is a mid-tone. It really is. And there we go on the other side of our blade. Some real quick non-metallic metals. I always try to sneak some of that in for you so that it just seems a little less scary, maybe. Let's continue to see what kind of wet blend. I don't see, we can still wet blend here. Look at that. It's the moment is temporary. It will not last forever. I don't want you to think that. But it lasts long enough to get some stuff done. So, see, just a matter of a few brush strokes, and we've already established just a basis for our non-metallic metals. That's all we're looking for now. Whoops, I wanted this with our Leviathan blue here. Let's see if we can go one more layer, level up in the hair. I need to do this almost a little sooner rather than later, because I gotta figure out what's going on with that face. How much lighter can I get with that? And I don't know if I want to really go much lighter than that. I'll have to in a few places to get at least some kind of decent lights, some shading in there, some form. But by saying, okay, this is gonna be your upper reach here. This will be your upper limit. Much easier to go back in to the face now, having this particular reference here. And as always, the dark sword here is nice because you have more sculpting of the individual blocks of hair as opposed to just one giant mass. The hair helmets, as we call them here. So really quickly just establishing that line. Let's go around to here. That works. Now let's see what we want to do on this sword blade here. Looking to do some pink, right? Because pink in swords. There it is. And because it is already semi-translucent just by being contrast paint, already get some transition on. Let's throw a little bit of this into the armor real quick. You can see another advantage of that liner brush type of, because the bristles, they only deform so much, not like the sable brushes that can just be, oh my gosh, they can change shape massively. Here that the shape change is more limited. Again, starting to pick out some lighter areas. These are not your final highlights whatsoever, and we also want to get some greens into this. You can see there's some extra panels here on the, look at that right here on our back of her hand. Do some more of our golds over here, at least our lighter golds. On shoes as well. Now, in some ways, part of this it reminds me of kind of the Rohan style armor, where you have the sort of the gold or the metal inset in leather, where you sort of have like a leather over the top of it. I guess it does provide some extra support, but almost is more. It provides the decoration, and then underneath is just the armor, and where the armor shows through the that kind of sculpted leather. That's what gives you that impression of the horse or whatever, like you have with the Rohan armor. It looks like there are some type of horns or whatever on the helmet there. Again, just trying to find some lights there. Can always go back and do glazes over the top of that. There we are. The same here. Let's go back to the... And if that's really not gonna fulfill what I'm hoping for, I got some of this pale yellow here. This is the creature caster. Pale yellow. I could just take clear red as also, but I'm really trying to stick with what's available here. Oh no, that's an interesting... That's mixed with the dark that we started with. That's an interesting kind of almost like a burgundy highlight color. So let's work with that. I was trying to stay away from pink, and now this is a bit more grayed down. Yeah, that works. As always, going to try and reflect it where possible onto the armor. We will lighten this up a touch more. So get up towards the top here. Lots of intricate folds on this, typical of Dark Sword. You're not going to have the super wide flowing cloaks. And I'll show you here. This is a good example of it. So this is your typical kind of your digital sculpting there. So not lots of heavy folds. And then the hand sculpting, you trend towards the heavier folds in things like cloaks. It's just that's what you with that the hand sculpting, working the green stuff as opposed to the where you're taking basically those polygons and sort of shifting those around and dragging them and pulling them. Sometimes you can really sort of tell with the digital sculpting that that's what was done. And again, none of this is to cast any kind of disparagement on the digital sculpting. That's just fine. If I had I used to do actually 3D design way back in the day, and I mean way back in the day. So that is not something that I dislike. It's different, and it's bound to be. Why would it not be different? It would kind of have to be. Otherwise, what's the point of doing digital sculpting aside from the other benefits of being able to rescale it easily? Then you would just keep doing stuff by hand if there was no difference between them. I kind of like having both. I'm really glad that both exist. I guess what I worry about is that one would just kind of completely take over for the other one, and we wouldn't have that. That would definitely be a loss for me, at least the way I see it. And there's no reason why sculptors can't do both, because they do. So sculptors are already doing both. Now I'm going to get a little bit of a lighter feel here to, there we go, cheekbones. We'll go in with our smaller brushes and hit stuff like the eyes. But for now, it's just how, like that should be. Let's get some of this into what would ostensibly be the golds. It'll still read as gold. However, there will be, we'll have some nifty reflection like this, where these stuff underneath will reflect what is down here. And with our remaining time, let's do that. Let's get this bottom area with some colors on it, because we can do that, no problem here. We'll get some of that. That's the Leviathan blue and Maiden Flash mix. And she's still on the original, as I always call it, the broccoli base. She's still on the original base. All I did was mesh those together with some of the, I think it was some of the oxide paste, and also had a little bit of the, just some rocks and gravel. Kept it simple, very simple. Didn't get too over the top with it. I figure between whatever kind of foliage we're going to throw on this, something that maybe complements the figure in some way. Let's get ourselves a touch of some lighter on these rocks here. Bring these out. Maybe a touch more here on the chin and the forehead. Let's make a green for ourselves. We'll take the Achillean green. We're going to take some of our yellow. Let's take a little more. So now we've got ourselves a green, or as we call that, yellow-blue. I don't necessarily want that to be like greenish, as in freshly grown or fresh foliage or something like that. It's a little hint of something that's not just a dirt color. Maybe some sort of, I don't know what kind of, again, I think more of a dead foliage. So I'm going to maybe throw a bit more of the, there we go, a little bit of that snakebite leather in there. So now that green becomes a little bit more of a pallid green. It changes it. And then once our foliage gets in there and some of the dirt effect right from the Luke's 8PS, I think then it will all start to make some sense. And let's get this last one here. Some of our greens over here that make it almost look like the rock itself has a bit of staining on it. Let's get some of this. We always want green in our golds. We got green now. Let's put some of that in here too. Especially in areas of reflection. Interesting the way these segments are. It's almost a touch like the wicker armor. Let's get some, what the heck, I'm going to throw a little bit of that as green in there. Mostly because, well, maybe some of the gold armor is reflecting onto the face. It'll do that. It will certainly do that. I do enjoy the way the liner brush lets me get way back into those crevices, though. Oh, look at this. Now we've got a red-green contrast here. Red versus green. Perhaps even do that over on this side before we darken it down with some of our, some of the wildwood there. And then we just do a little bit of blending on it. You really can make a significant effect So we've got some decent initial lights and darks on here already in just a few minutes. So what we will do in the next segment now, we'll maybe play around with back and forth with some glazes on things to sort of knock them down, and then go back in and start to think about some of these brighter highlights. We'll work on the face. We got several things we can work on here next. I'm gonna get, just while I'm thinking about it here, a couple of lights right on the knee, and then let's get that little bit of chainmail there. Okay, so there we go. We have our kind of initial glazes, shaded base coat, right? Some blends too. So what we'll do next is we'll throw some more glazes on there, work on the face, and start to build up our non-metallic metals some more as well. Let's play around with the face here real quick. And what we'll do is we'll grab some of our Leviathan blue. Let's just do something here with the lips real quick. We'll obviously make those lighter. We're also gonna just throw some darks around the eyes again. We're also gonna take some of that wildwood there, and we're gonna try and create a bit. Again, it's not quite sky earth or anything like that, but it's along those lines. It's a semi-horizon line. I might even see. I'm gonna take some of that Vulpes pink. We're gonna mix it with the other snakebite leather, and now the gold gets broken up here a bit. Can't just all be gold. So that's nice to break that up a little bit there. Maybe even this too. And then let's take now some of our, that's the Iandin yellow. That's a little bit more like your traditional type of glaze. A bit more maybe like what you're used to seeing with the glaze, but it has to be, if it's not lighter before you do that, you're not going to get any kind of real effect with that glaze. Why would you? There's no light. You can't, if you put dark or a medium or a middle tone over a middle tone, you'll get a nice middle tone, and that's it. You won't have anything else. Now we're looking for some more of our darks on the sword blade, so we're just gonna find some more of these areas with some dark. We're also going to take some of that yellow, mix it with the snakebite leather, get ourselves a few little glazes of that here and there. Okay, let's give this person or elf or whatever some eyes here. Now it's interesting because you have the iris is kind of sculpted in. There's a little dot right there, so that will make things interesting. Let's see if we can't put some shading into the lips here. And I'm going to see if I could turn on my brighter lights just to, I think that will work, but I just really need my brighter lights going, so I apologize if there's any weird things that happen. I don't think there is. Sometimes you get the crazy gray bars and lines and stuff. Let's work on our cheekbones here. I'm going to take some of this. That's the same color that's in her robe there. We'll put that here for some shading on the cheeks, such as it is. Then we'll go back in. Now, this is where I would really be relying on something like a brown liner or a blue liner. We don't have those. So we have to work with what we have, and that would be something like a mix between the wildwood and your Leviathan blue. Gonna try and get some decent dark around those eyes. And this is something I've been wanting to play with. I've seen it in some pictures here. Okay. So this is like a pink right here. And I'm just going to put this around the eyes. I don't want it to look like a zombie or undead or something. But I think I really do enjoy. I'm just looking at it here and I like that. I do like that. I'm going to maybe see what happens when I lighten that up for the right here, but to separate the eyebrows and the eyelids. Oh, good. You can see that. Okay, we're using the quad 0 here. Now we want it looking up either this way or this way. We're just going to have her looking off to the side here. And hopefully we get that to, yeah, see how you're not looking directly at you, but off, sort of off camera a little bit. Now we will get some light on the nose there. And on the upper lip, or above the upper lip here. And then we'll get some light in the hair as well. So just like the other dark sword figure that we did with the bluer skin tones, I'm going to try where possible. I've done plenty with sort of human, regular skin tones. I want to try some more that are a little bit more on the fantastical side of things. Okay, we've got a little touch of that's our off-white yellow from Pro Acryl. Now her face, as we go even a little bit lighter on the hair. And this will basically be as light as our highlights go on our golds too. So that's going to be interesting to, again, to make the two work together and extend some of the lighter. I'm also mixing it with a little bit of the maiden flesh. And actually there's, I see some hair right there. We've got to let the ear kind of show through a bit. Once again, let's see what we can do here in this area. I think you can see what I'm after right in there. I think our glazes did some nice work on our golds over here. I'm going to now, this is going to be more of the semi-opaque type thing here. We're taking some of that yellow, mixing it in with our Pro Acryl here. So now it will sort of cover, but not completely cover. I don't want to lose all those greens that we established in there, though. Going to take some of our off-white here and build up some lights there. Now let's do some. Let's do a little bit of some kind of reflection there. Again, you can see there's some green that gets into this. And even into the sword blade there. Speaking of the sword blade, let's do some. We gotta do something in here. It's all the same value. I'm gonna see what happens if I do a lighter pink in here, so we kind of do that dark, light, dark thing again. But then we also need this to be lighter down here. I think, oh good, you can see that. Okay, that helps. That is very helpful. I'm gonna go even lighter in here. And it's at a bit of an angle. See how that's kind of going like this? A little bit of a sweep to it there. Now, guess what? We might want to do the same thing over here. So there's our that lighter tone. Then we will do something like that to kind of tone it down. Get those two to blend together a little more. Back to my semi-translucent mix here. There we go. So see, we have that nice little, almost like there's some kind of light shine, and it's irregular too. It's not a straight line. I see that an awful lot. Sort of like the cartoon window glass, right? See, even that. Look at that. Can you see that's not just one solid mass? Or see, it's almost like there's some chips in it or whatever. Very important to do that. Here, let's get our light color on that side too. Find ourselves some highlights on her shoes and on the legs here as well. We haven't really done much of anything there. So there's definitely some inserts. Yeah, this is almost more like an armor insert here. It is sort of very reminiscent of the Rohan style armor. Now we've got to also, there's like these 3 horizontal lines sculpted in there. Now we've got some stuff going on over here, and I might do that also in some green, as long as you can see it. Just want to make sure you can. Aha, there we are. And then catch a little more reflected light here, like you do. Just because this potentially maybe is some kind of dark elf doesn't mean there can't be reflected light. I'm sort of seeing I know with a lot of the dark sword figures, when they go towards the realm, say, of the drow or the dark elves, you tend to see armor that looks more like that sort of bat shape. You do get to notice, what would you say, the tendencies of company sculptors after a while. See, look at this. We're gonna work in. That's almost like a I don't want to say it's a verdigris, but it's definitely got some green in it. We'll work some of that in down here as well. Before we go back, this is our sort of sepia tone and the very bright yellow mix. And I really do enjoy these quadruple zero brushes. Kind of actually liking these better than the Winsor Newton Series 7. So if you see me using these more, it's just sometimes you find a new tool that I like the fact that it's got the spring back of a synthetic brush. Now the caveat to that is, as always, it's a whole lot easier to destroy something like this. So we have to sort of limit its use by continuing to do as much as we can with those other brushes, like the 000 sables that I've got. I also have now some 00 Cotmans again. They finally came back in stock. Well, a few of them did, so I got some of those. And I think we will just do more conversation about other type of brushes besides just the number 8 rounds. I mean, you've seen that a bazillion times. You don't need me to keep continuously explaining that same thing to you. But these other brushes, I don't think you've heard as much discussion on those. Now, in the days of the painting pyramid, there was much more discussion about these type of brushes here. I think it's going to be time to do just more of that. We are also going to get ourselves some more darks in here. Continuing to work on our armor. Some more of our darks there. And we've got, again, our little bit of an off-white like this. Because that is not straight up, that's not straight up off-white there. It has a little bit of our snakebite leather mixed into it. I'm even going to let some of that yellow work its way into the hair. And then I'm going to actually get some of this green here. See, some of that. It's nice and light. I don't want to lose all of that purple right there, but I would like to have a little hint of this greenish color in there. And look at that. It also acts as a bit of a mediator between where the lightest hair color was ending and that more purplish type tone. I also like the idea of this on the top of the sword, and guess what? It's going to be about where that sunlight is there. So we're trying to make sense of these little highlights that we've put on the metal back to the more seafoam green tone again. I like the idea of having some more of that on the armor here. So we'll have that go right in this area here. Look at that. It's a suggestion of all of that little, there's like some runes or whatever. Again, very, very much like Rohan. And as you can see, we've got that same sort of seafoam green down here on the base. So why not have some of that reflected onto the armor too? Okay, let's do same on this side here. Okay, couple more shots here. So what we'll do now is we're gonna play around some more with the robe here, because we got lights and darks and a little bit of midtones, but I like to sneak some of that same green into the cloak as well. And again, other darks where we might need those. So we'll do that next. I think we've got the sword mostly settled, so we'll especially focus here on the robe and whatever other little highlights we're going to do on the face too. And we'll be right back with that. So we wanted to get into our robes over here. And let's see what I can do. I'll take some of that, our off-white. I'll mix that in with our Vulpus pink, and I'm going to give that another shot here with the yellow. Now I could always just take, I have one of the red contrast paints there, but I'm trying to do something here. Just there, look at that. See, that is just a little bit more. It's not necessarily lighter, it just got a little more intensity to it. That's what I was looking for. See that? Now it separates a little bit from the hair. It's all getting to be a little bit similar in tone. And that just gives me one extra little level of brightness. But see that touch of the yellow over there? It kept it from being too pink, because that was okay in the sword blade, but I did not want the cloak to be pink. Yeah, that right there. All right, so that was nice to be able to do that. I'm also going to get some of that here, potentially reflected into the armor like this. I think you can. Well, I have to have it facing towards me. I know it makes it a little bit tough for you to see it. Now this, I don't mind that being more of a bluish tone, but out here on this outer portion, I wanted this to just be not quite pink. That little touch of yellow in there takes it away from pink. Now I'm not going to do every single one of these lights. I'm kind of leaving those two a little bit more, and I'm focusing more on the upper folds here. And just going to work on that a touch more here. Get yeah. And now see the hair. I was hoping that the hair would kind of have like some dark ends on it. That seems more interesting to me than just the lighter tone went all the way down on the hair. You know what? I'm just gonna have that extend a little bit further, and then I've got my original color right here, and there we go. Remember, we also wanted to get some midtones or some more interesting stuff going on in here, so let's do that too. We've got our seafoam green here. If it's a little too much, oh look, I've got some of the purple right there. So now look at that. That's going to be, I think, a touch more interesting instead of just, well, gradually darker reddish purple. We don't necessarily do it everywhere, but see, look at that nice little indication. Look at that. Nice little indication of some gray down. It's still the same. We've got some of that pink in there, but remember, the pink and the green together, or purple and green, or whatever type of similar combination, it's going to give us that gray. We could put that on the base, and people will just think it's gray. But on the cloak, because of that whole tricking the eye there, making basically the eye think, well, okay, this is red, right? Now we do some, let's get some of this now into these crevices. Now these can be a little tough to reach easily, so that's why I'm using the quadruple zero to make sure I can get down into there, because we don't want the folds to be If the folds are super dark, then any highlight's going to look extreme by comparison, and we don't want that. I'm going to let a little more green get into the cloak here just for the heck of it. And then we'll really do some of that over here on this other side. And it's going to turn this upside down so I can get to this a little bit more easily. So not only is it semi-translucent, but I put some water in there to make it even more translucent. So we've got that reddish base on the cloak, but now we've got some more of the kind of seafoam green starts to show up here. And I'm going to also employ that as once more basically this kind of reflected light style color here in the armor too. Maybe even a bit on the face. We need some more, speaking of reflected light. But now I'm gonna, here, let's take some of this. Well, it's kind of a dirty pink right here at this point. And I'm gonna try and lighten up that particular cheekbone. Yes, it was, the lights on that just was too narrow. And I'd like to have, I guess, just an indication of light on those eyelids too. Now I've got this is my yellow here. Again, that's the Iandin yellow. Some more glazing on that armor there. And now we're going to do a touch of reflected light here on these. Right there we go. That's gonna, because, well, okay, yeah, you have that dark there, but then it just, with the way the shape of the sculpting was there, actually having that little bit of reflected light really helped those out. Okay, back to kind of our original here. So that's the Leviathan blue mixed with some of the maiden flesh here. So we're kind of back to the beginning. And I want to make sure I've got enough lights here and try and give some kind of expression to this too, instead of just like here on the corners of the mouth. They're trying to do something with those. And I might even, I'm going to see if I can't sneak in, yeah, just a little touch of the pinkish tone there. It also brings a little bit of the color of the robe into the skin too. So that's not a bad thing. Here, taking some of the snakebite leather. Is it a glaze? Sort of, I guess. There's no water in it, but we are using it, as you can see, transparently. But we haven't, like I said, we haven't added any additional water to it or anything like that. We're just using it as is, sort of, what would you say, straight out of the container form. I'm going to go back to, here's some Leviathan blue. And some of the ends of the hair, I'm going to actually darken those down a bit more. Just, I don't know why. I just thought it could be interesting, and I'm going to carry that up. You see how that it's starting to work its way up the hair a little bit more. Now I am also Yes, I'm thinning this down with some water. I know there's the whole way you're not supposed to thin it with water. Well, if you're gonna just be slopping it all over the place, like the GW way, well, then maybe you probably don't want to be mixing water with it. But when you're doing it like this, is just a slight kind of enhancing glaze, definitely not a problem. I need to define this ear a little more, so that's what we're doing right here. All right. These guys back here also could use some definition. I'm even going to go as all the way to some wildwood here. And just going to hit these, and then we'll go back in with some lights, as you do. Okay. And I think also I got to figure out something to do with it with the elbow there. That's going to need something, and we are gonna want some lighter colors up on these things on the shoulders here. Let's do that right now. Just using that's the Pro Acryl, the off-white there. That's more like it. Okay. And I might. Let's do a little bit here. You know what we're going to do, and I haven't really discussed this at all. So, move the palette out of here. I've discussed this in some of the live thing, but this is just something I think I got on Amazon. I just got this on Amazon. This has actually been working really well. I've been surprised. I had very little expectations for this, but it does actually kind of clean out the brushes and it leaves them in a decent state. Now, we've talked about with these, all the junk there in the ferrule, what I'm going to try and do is sort of get some of that gunk out of there. Now, not really going to, not smashing it down in there. I'm just sort of getting the bristles and the ferrule, a little bit of that material on there. Look at that. So it's been surprised at how that usually that's something that I would do with even rubbing alcohol. I mean, they are synthetic brushes after all. But that was just a Winsor Newton brush cleaner, restorer, whatever. Thought you might find that interesting. Now I'm gonna go back into the light, but I'm trying to find an even lighter, one more lighter tone to potentially use on the. Yeah, and one thing that's interesting, if you got paint on your hand, so it just kind of melted that paint on my hand, so it really does clean the paint. It sure does. I think that needs to be a little bit even lighter. I'm looking for the end of the nose, right there on the mouth, the chin, and here. I wanted to get some white eyebrows in, or at least something that was lighter, because I've never really done that. I thought that might be fun. Once again, let's draw in a couple of shapes here, and boy, that really needs, it's another area that could use some more definition. Some type of reflection. There's a little bit of dark in, okay, yeah. Possibly more dark there for the helmet and maybe even this horn. Maybe that's just a whole different color. It was just, there's too much gold in one spot. There ain't enough room for all that gold. I see I also need to get some dark down in there. That all starts to make a little more sense now. And then I can actually maybe take some of that seafoam green there, and that would be the lighter color on that, on the horn there. That makes a little, yeah, there was so much gold there. I'm thinking, why do I have no shape? I got shading, but no shape. And it's because there's just too much of the same color there. As soon as I got rid of some of the same color, changed it around, didn't really, yeah, maybe I guess I darkened it a little bit too at that. But the primary thing that happened there was the, yeah, just getting that away from the, all the gold that was right there. So get something more here. I guess a couple of brighter highlights too. Yeah. Same here. Oh, wow. Yeah, big difference there. Big difference there. We need to do that here as well. And I'm guessing I need to do that, well, some of it on this side here. I already had done a bit of that already. I don't really want to go down to the feet and start putting all kinds of lighter colors on that. We'll leave that alone. What we are going to do is try and get the upper reaches of whatever these things are that are hanging down here. And that's going to help. And remember, we wanted to go back into here again. Couple of lighter shapes here. Same over there. There's a lot of intricate, sort of interwoven lines there that we need to capture. I see I need to capture some lights over here. Like, how does this part here, even though this is the highest, most raised part, how does that not have some highlights on it? It does now. I see we need to hit, just like we hit on the other side, we need to get that. I think you can see where we're going to go with this. A couple of little lights there, and we got to get this edge lightened just a bit. Yeah. And now we will take some of that. The Vulpus pink will make this into a somewhat of a lightish red. And just get a little hint of red in there. I don't want to lighten the whole thing, but even just a hint of red in there makes that more interesting. I'm going to get some hints of red elsewhere too. Oh, like here. And then also in the folds of this robe here, cloak. So see a couple of those little dots that extended out right there? That was intentional to just, again, some dots. Something needs to happen on the mask of this here. Is this all it needs? We shall find out. It's not real defined. I'm having hard time reading necessarily what's going on right there, so I'll just I will fudge it a bit. Still glad I did that green right there. That is very helpful. Now, I was tempted to maybe grab some of the bold titanium white to really have some bright highlights to throw out here, but nope, we're going to try and stick with what we have. Let's see if we can just stick with that and do the best we can. Gonna go back with some. This is the sepia liner here. Sepia liner. See that's is that a Freudian slip? Is that what we would call it? That's actually snakebite leather. Boy, oh boy, yeah, that's not snakebite leather. That's not the sepia liner. There's no sepia liner out here for sure. I did not sneak any out there. As I get a couple of darks up towards the top of those things on her shoulder pauldrons there. I will try and do a similar little thing over here. Okay. I'm going to go back with this. Again, it's a little bit of a green here. Can you see? Can you see that? It's just going right down in there ever so slightly. Got so much gold in that area. Just throwing more lighter yellows. It's like, okay, yeah. Just, it would be so boring. Look at this. The highlight there is actually going to be, there's that seafoam green for you again. See that now? Instead of just a, well, darker tan in the recess, which it would give you, yes, it would give you some shading. It certainly would. It give you shading, shape, whatever. But would it make it interesting? I guess that's the next thing you got to ask yourself. Also thinking about, going to try and get some the lighter version of the skin tone going here on the cheek. Yes, that's it. Hoping that I can, yep, get some on the other side there too. Okay, so she's got a serious look on her face, but not just, I don't know. I wanted more than just the serious look. Let's see if I can do the same thing on the green like I did. You see those little couple of dots right there? Maybe as I take some of the Maggot White, mix it with that Leviathan Blue, is catch a couple of lighter tones here on the rocks. Almost, I don't know, maybe it's almost like a bit of a moonlight or something, whatever. Nothing super fancy. But what we'll do now in our final phase is we'll just grab a few types of flock or whatever, and we'll just kind of look at them, and we'll see what sort of captures our fancy, what we think might work well, or what combination of things might work well for this, because we want definitely something that is going to complement the colors of the figure, but not overwhelm it. And there's also, we don't just want tufts and foliage just for the sake of having them, because I see that a lot. It's just like, oh, I got grass tufts, boom, here, there's a tuft. Maybe take it a little bit past that. Maybe think of the grass tufts as more than just a little bit of an extra add-on thing, but maybe something that adds additional complements the figure. There's a reason for it there, just like there's a reason for a brushstroke to be there, a reason for a color to be there, or the freehand to be there. So I think that's got us pretty well set in here for our, yeah, as I get just a last little bit of highlights in there. So what we're going to do is we're gonna, again, find some grass stuff, see what we like, some foliage, and we'll give her some kind of plant life here on this. And we'll be right back with that. So now we have to choose what kind of foliage we're going to do, or combinations of foliage. Now, I've looked at a few of these, and because of the the red in the cloak and such this could be neat right here, but this might almost be overdoing it. We might be overwhelming this with too much red, as much as I like that. Now this, actually a nice little compliment to all the golds there, and it also does kind of indicate that maybe this foliage is dying or something like that, or it's whatever. That's why you have a dark elf kind of walking around in some kind of a field or whatever. And then there's this is all from Green Stuff World, by the way. Now there's this one. I don't know if we've really actually used this one, so I'm curious. I'm gonna take this out of the package here. Boom. This has a little bit of each. It's got some green, some red, so I'm kind of intrigued by this foliage right here. Now what we'll do is, as always, we're gonna take a little bundle of it here. Now you can see how tall this stuff is, but it's designed to be cut into smaller segments here. So what about that? Is that just too much? That might be a little too much color right there, but just keep it nearby. Now another reason why I was pondering this is because I've got this. This here is from Warlord Games, and it's some nice little wasteland tufts, and it might just go with these guys right here. So trying not to overwhelm the miniature, this certainly would go with it. It's also kind of tells that same story, I'm thinking. So now we have to figure out, okay, where will we put those grass tips? I'm thinking maybe one here, possibly another one here. And the whole idea that those are going there is to form a little bit of a base for these. Now, I do, unlike, say, previous, here, let me grab, I also have some of these things from Luke's ABS. Okay, I didn't have this before, and I've got another one that I do believe has some orange to it. 1 second here. No, we'll just go with this one. So I'm thinking, see, a little dirt, rocks, whatever, that might go with some kind of farm field, whatever. So let's just see if we can snag one or two of these brownish tufts here. Maybe some other on the smaller side, like maybe this guy. And of course, we want to have a pin like this. I'll just grab one of these, not two of them. I'll just pop this one, let's say right here. So this would be our shorter tuft, and then we could maybe put some taller ones, maybe one here. Potentially one here. So we want to have 3 different heights. We want to do that triangle thing, right? One here, one here, one over here. So I think we'll go with, pull out some of this. There we go. Don't need a huge batch of inset. You can kind of bundle that up right there. I'm thinking on this side of it here. Scissors. Height, I'm going to go with about there. And that would go probably here. It's a little difficult to keep that into a bundle. Ah, this is better. Okay. So something, right there. That's my target zone there. So I can't just drop that there. I need something to actually hold that in place. And my hope is this can give me a little bit of a help with that. So we'll stick this here. And then this can kind of be stuck into that. Now all of those are kind of the same height, so I'm going to tear this one away. I'll make that one shorter. Hopefully this all makes sense once we do it. So we got our super glue here. I'm gonna grab me a tweezers. Make sure I've got this button. I could actually, well, I don't necessarily want to glue it again to the bundle just yet, but I'm gonna throw some glue down in here, and here's hoping that works the way I want it to. Okay. So it also forms a little bit of a background, right, for the miniature there. Now, I would like to have this shorter one here be positioned somewhere. I'm gonna throw it here. Hopefully you can see what's going on. It can be something a little clumsy. Ah, there we go. So you can see what we did there. I haven't really done this many little individual pieces in clumps. I'd really like to have some over here, but I think it's gonna have to be extremely short and somewhat minimal. So I'm gonna do this. And I'd like to position that over here. Some glue. I could drill a hole or something like that, obviously, but all right. 3 different heights, 3 different sizes, right? We've done all of those things. Now we've got our dirt over. Actually, what I'm going to do is do a little bit of cheating here. So what I'm going to do is cut off a bit of just the top part on this. Potentially stick that over here. Nah. Less of that. Even less. So I just chop that up. Get our glue here. Then position that here. And hopefully it's not going to stick to the tweezers. So it gives a little support. Just like what this did over here, that gives that a little support. And now I'm going to take some of this. I'm just going to put some of this right here just to see how I like it while there's still some glue there. So we're going to just sneak in a little of this glue. The reason I'm doing this glue is because it is just so watery, and it's getting down to all those little cracks and crevices and such. Okay. So that is filled in around those rocks. We can still see our painted rocks. Maybe. Yeah, okay. Glad I saw that, because I don't want that to get filled in quite so much. Okay. Just throw a little bit of that over here. Some of my rock, or some of my dirt right there. And then I think here's our last little section over here. Yeah, I could have taken some of my leaves, right, and thrown those on there. But there's something about, yeah, see a little bit of dirt right there. And then you can see just how liquid that glue is. That's the cheap super glue right there. So now we still have some of the green that we painted on the base, but now I think we've been able to have this. You know what? I'm gonna just shoot a little super glue in there. Again, I'm cheating just a little bit. Okay, so I think now we have something looks reasonably natural. So here, this was more than tufts. I don't know, maybe I should just call it this. Here, I'm going to actually write that down on the, there we go, just so I don't forget when it comes to editing time. Yes, we just threw a couple of grass tufts, and then we just took the Green Stuff World plants here and chucked that on top of them and did a little bit of the Luke's APS, but how many times have you seen a miniature that's actually painted really, really well? They clearly took time to do that. And then this is just like grass tuft, and it's green. Or it's a flower tuft with insanely bright flowers. It really doesn't have much to do with anything. Okay, great. So that's what I'm thinking here. A couple simple things. Gives us more of a setting. Right now, look at how it frames. It frames that cloak. And you look through this. You're looking like through a scene at the figure. This tiny little base, right? It's clearly a gaming size base. It's a 30 millimeter round base. But doing this a little bit, and this will be rugged enough because we stuck this one in a tuft and we made sure that we braced this one over here. So it should withstand some knocks, right? It should be okay there. So I'm thinking we've created a little bit of a story around this way. I like the interplay of these browns and tans and golds, and then we've got one more extra texture here on the ground, which also serves a function as well as just the visual. So I think we've been pretty successful. Again, this is not a super complicated figure. This is not a big deal. It's just fun little dark sword figure, but maybe think a little bit more about the tufts other than just an afterthought, just sticking those on there. Because remember, we did some of those episodes where we made our own grass tufts. We'll go back into that again, especially making flower tufts and shrub tufts. Because the first one was really all about the grass, and I want to get more into the shrub and flower tufts next time around. So I just want to do the usual thank yous, the round of thank yous at this point. Everybody that supports this level, Army Painter, Pledge level, all the levels, it makes a huge difference. It's the reason why I have these materials here. Otherwise, I probably would just kind of have the same old tufts. I really wouldn't be trying to make my own because I wouldn't really I just keep getting the same old ones over and over again for the same old commissions over and over again. So what we'll do I think with Dark Sword 41, I'd like to actually go back into some oils again because and maybe do some TMM in oils on a Dark Sword figure. And I also have a fun little sort of again, it's just a base, but I think we can make a little sort of a diorama base like this using some other Green Stuff World stuff. So I look forward to doing that for you guys, and I will see you then. Thanks a lot.